All right, letting it load up here. Hopefully everything is working. I'm checking on my end. Looks like we're live. I just wait for the notification on my YouTube. And there it is. What's going on, everybody? Nicholas Moreano here. Big day for Chicago Bears fans. And like many of you, you probably weren't you just doing whatever you were doing on your normal Monday afternoon. I was at my future in-laws house just kind of hanging out, and bam! Check Twitter, and Adam Schefter drops the bomb that Ben Johnson going to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. What a day. What a time to be a Bears fan. And maybe if you have those Raiders fans, you should probably check on them because they were feeling pretty confident. Maybe like even 2 hours ago that they were going to land Ben Johnson as their next head coach. But crazy day. Awesome to be a Bears fan. And I think a lot of optimism about what this Bears team can potentially do, that now that they have their head coach, they're starting to fill some of their coaching staff. And, Dennis Allen being the guy that's connected to be the DC here in Chicago. But we'll get into all that. I'm going to let everybody kind of fill in a little bit here. I'm going to make sure to tweet out that I'm live right now. Like I said, I'm waiting for the notification on YouTube. I got to get a better, I don't know, logistics of that, but we're working on it. By the time I'm down, crazy too. But I thought the Senior Bowl, lost complete track of time. Like, Senior Bowl is going to be this week. No, next week. By the time I am down in Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl, I have all that figured out. A bunch of new content out there too. So let's just keep things going and keep it doing this too as well. So let's see. We're gonna tweet this out. It looks like I want to make sure we're still live here. My computer is dark, so I want to make sure everything's running right, doing what it's supposed to do. Okay. Yep, letting everybody. Okay. If you're obviously, I'm seeing who's in the chat. I got that actually live and running this time too, so I'm really happy about that. Let me know if you can hear me, see me, good, and then we'll continue kind of going on here. I'm kind of seeing that things got a little screwy, so I'm gonna let the I don't know if it's the Wi-Fi or what it is. Is it just cold? YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. We're gonna let it play out a little bit. I think it's starting to catch up here, but again, Bears hire Ben Johnson. I think too, I don't know. I felt like I was seeing a little bit where, Bears fans, just people who cover the Bears or, are plugged in, and, there's almost like a constant, like almost people thinking like, yeah, Ben's probably going to go somewhere else. So at least they have these other options. And I was kind of leaning that direction too. It's like, this was a good, I think, coaching cycle. There were a bunch of options that I think you felt like if you missed out on a Ben Johnson, could you see yourself feeling good about potentially like a Todd Monken, who obviously was also out of the playoffs with the Ravens losing last night to the Buffalo Bills. Like, I could have, saw myself being like, that's a good consolation prize. I like that. Mike McCarthy, I was still up in the air about it. I get like there is there's a lot of positives that he brings with his resume, but a lot of negatives. I've always talked about on here, like, what's the ceiling with a guy like that? But Ben Johnson was the ultimate prize. He was the one guy that you wanted to see if the Bears organization can get out of its own way historically and go and get a guy like that. And so, as things were playing out, it just felt like it's the Bears, right? Like, they're not going to land a Ben Johnson, the hot coordinator of this cycle. There's no way. But they did. And I think, look, I'm probably on record saying, even when they drafted Caleb Williams and had the draft, like, this is, it was time for the organization was finally changing in the right direction. And they have the season that they do, only winning 5 games. But this does feel like now that there is change. The Bears don't go and hire a coach that has Trace Armstrong as his agent. They go with like a Ben Johnson, completely different agency, and one that's actually represented here in Chicago as well. So it does feel like there is a little bit of shift, but it also signifies too, hey, the top, however much Ben Johnson is making, I can tell you that it's going to be on the higher end for head coaches. And to know that the McCaskies, the Bears organization, were willing to go to that amount I think that also shows that this team, this organization, this franchise is willing to do whatever is necessary to get this right. And for, a team that has historically done things maybe backwards, or you question things, you're wondering, well, when are they going to finally, kind of get with the times and just do things the way that other teams are running their organizations? Well, this hire signifies that. And it shows that the Bears, even though their process was, depending on who you talk to, like when you go with 17 different candidates, 17 candidates that actually interview for the head coaching job, it seems excessive. But then they still land with the number one guy. And I'm sure when we get the opportunity to talk to Ben Johnson, Ryan Poles at House Hall, we'll hear a little bit more about that process, things like that. But like, yes, it was a little bit different. You're bringing in literally everybody from every walks of the football life, college, coordinators, former head coaches, all those things, and then you land with a Ben Johnson. So the process was maybe a little different. Some people were laughing at it. I wasn't too harsh on it. You just, if they got their guy, they got their guy, and that's how they went about it. But you knew that you really couldn't even bring Ben Johnson in person to interview until their season had ended, or there's a certain window during the Super Bowl if they made it there. But it never got to that. Well, didn't get to the point of obviously the Super Bowl, but when you lose, you already knew. I think the Bears knew, like, this sped up the whole entire process of how they were going about it. And I think a good organization would have a backup plan too. But once they saw like Washington was going to win that game, I'm sure things started kind of turning in that Bears organization where they needed to move even quicker with this. And I think it's telling too that Ben Johnson, didn't go and meet in person with any of the two other organizations that he was really linked to in the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Las Vegas Raiders. So I think there was a mutual understanding maybe after that first meeting that, the Bears and Ben Johnson were a good match for each other. And clearly that's the case, because Ben Johnson will be the 18th head coach in the Chicago Bears history. So it's an exciting time. And, let's go back really quickly, and you can obviously, there's so many games that you can go through to kind of get an indication what Ben Johnson's going to be like. But I like going back to the second matchup at Soldier Field. And that was where you had the stumble play where Sam Laporta scores a touchdown on the corner route where, it's a fake by Jahmyr Gibbs falling into the ground and Jared Goff stumbling, touchdown. That's great. The creativity is awesome. The creativity is intuitive. It's something that even in the loss against Commanders, you're seeing the double pitch to, I think it was Montgomery who pitched to St. Brown, and Tom Brady saying he had never seen anything like that. A guy that's played 20 years in the NFL. Like, those are all great things. And those creative plays are a part of the Detroit Lions offense. And you knew to expect some of those things in each game. But realistically, you're not running trick plays, not even like 5% of the time, right? Maybe even around there. But you're excited with Ben Johnson. And we'll just talk offensively real quick, and we'll get to the overarching like head coach and what he needs to do there, and that's still the question mark. But as an offensive mind, what I always appreciated going back to that second matchup against the Lions at Soldier Field, it wasn't that play to Laporta that really caught my eye. It was the, I believe, 82-yard touchdown to Jameson Williams. And why that play stood out to me more than anything was because of how it was set up. If you watch the Detroit Lions offense, you know that they absolutely love, and the Bears are going to get this now too, now that Ben Johnson is the head coach and obviously will be the play caller, but those in-breaking routes, it can range from 10 to 20 yards, deep in-breaker in the middle of the field, because the Lions are able to run that play action, are able to suck in the linebackers, move some of the safeties. You're able to get those deep in-breaking routes with St. Brown, Jameson Williams, even Sam Laporta at times. So when you see those types of plays, that's going to be a fundamental part of now the Bears offense. But how that Jameson Williams 82-yard touchdown happened, it was Tyreek Stevenson. They were playing cover 3 defense, and you had Jonathan Owens as a safety to the play side where he gets he gets influenced by that deep in breaking route. So as you're the safety who is in a bind, you have to weigh, do I go and run with the post in the middle of the field because my cover three corner is going to be trailing and Tyreek Stevenson did never turn his hips in time and Jameson Williams is open, or do I break on the 20-yard in breaking route? And for Jonathan Owens, he was stuck in a bind. He doesn't help over the top with Tyreek Stevenson. You give up the touchdown, but he was thinking about the in-breaking route. You're thinking about that play because of how often Detroit runs it. So you're seeing just the influence of, yes, these defenders are watching tape. They know what's coming, but they don't know exactly when you're going to hit that deep in-breaking route. And that's the bind, and that's the frustration that comes with playing a Ben Johnson type of offense. And of course, why does that get set up? Because you're able to run the football effectively. You have an offensive line that will give the quarterback time, and then you have the quarterback hitting a deep throw downfield with the receiver getting behind the defense. So there's a lot of different factors that go into it, but schematically, how things were set up, like that's Ben Johnson. Then it's obviously the execution of the players making it work. So I love that. I love that aspect of now that's what Caleb Williams is going to be able to run. That's what this Bears offense is going to see happen with their playmakers. Like, I can see a guy like DJ Moore loving that type of play. And that's so credit, or I don't want to give credit, but like 2 years ago when DJ Moore set his career season, Justin Fields was a quarterback, there were so many of those types of plays where he would be open on a 20-yard dig just in the middle of the field. That's where DJ Moore was excelling. You did not see that as much for whatever reason in this offense with Thomas Brown, Shane Waldron, all these guys running it, but that's going to be back. I guarantee you that will be back for a guy like DJ Moore. Roman Dunze can easily run that route. Actually, go back to the Thursday night game against Seattle, where Caleb's saying you got to go to the second window. He's throwing to the second window. Rome stops in the first window, ends up being an incomplete pass. That's that play, but you're going to just see it not only called more often, but called and be effective because of what, again, a guy like Ben Johnson can do. And, I think I saw in the, Fidel, fixing O-line needs to be prioritized now for sure. Absolutely. And so that's the thing with now Ben Johnson as a head coach, being with Detroit for as long as he was, you would just imagine and think that Ben Johnson's looking at this roster now saying, what don't I have that I had in Detroit? I don't have the offensive line or the playmakers or just the caliber of players on the offensive line that I did when I was with Detroit. So as you're approaching this draft, I'm assuming now that as they're finalizing their coaching staff, these guys will be down at the Senior Bowl looking at some of those prospects. You just need to find the guys that are now going to build that offensive line. It's not going to look of course, it's not going to be identical to what Detroit has, but you got to find your own version of how you're going to be able to run that offense, run the offense that you still want to be able to bring to Chicago, but you're going to have to do that by addressing the O-line. So that absolutely needs to be done if you're Ben Johnson. That's I would think one of the top priorities as you're kind of looking at this job and what you can do with this current roster. But also, I mean, it goes without saying, like, Caleb Williams is the focus. There's no doubt about it. So what Jared Goff did so well in the playoff game against Washington, he obviously had his mistakes, playing clean with the football, but playing on time. And that's the biggest thing for Caleb Williams going into year 2. It's being in rhythm, playing on time, hitting your playmakers when those windows are open. And that, again, comes with footwork. It comes with just knowing exactly what the play concept is. What is your progression on each play? Knowing if they're playing a certain defense, well, you're not going to be able to throw the dig on this certain type of defense because there's going to be a middle linebacker there. So go down to your check down. So it's going to be a lot. There's going to be, I think, a quicker processing that needs to happen with Caleb, and Ben will help get him there, and whoever Ben Johnson brings to fill out the rest of his coaching staff. But this is, it's going to be fascinating to watch to see how much of that Detroit Lions offense is now going to be implemented in Chicago. And, I would think too, like, you look at just the rushing attack. Yeah, the Bears, they have a lot to work to do in that aspect, but if you're looking at, so if I'm thinking, if I'm Ben Johnson, if you're looking at a guy like DeAndre Swift, I think there's a lot of plays that were left off the table that didn't happen in 20 during the 2024 season that I think Ben Johnson can get more out of. And he isn't Jahmyr Gibbs, he isn't David Montgomery by any means, but completely different play styles, body types, everything like that. But you need to find ways to maximize a guy like that. He's on contract. He's going to be somebody that you're obviously counting on. And I wouldn't rule out bringing in another type of running back. Yes, Roshan Johnson, was in year 2, had the concussions, things like that, but you may just want a more dynamic type of runner, or maybe this is a better opportunity for Roshan. It's going to be interesting how Ben Johnson views that spot specifically, and just what he thinks he can do as a play caller there. So again, I'm like really intrigued by all this. Actually, once I hop off of here, I'm sure I'll do some writing and things like that. But just going back and watching more of the games that they played, and just seeing like the type of offense, how they do things, like that's going to be fun to watch. But you also got to take it like what Detroit has been doing. Like Chicago, realistically, probably isn't at that point where they can run it the way that Detroit was running it. I mean, you just look at Jared Goff versus Caleb Williams, and maybe that also opens things up for a guy like Ben Johnson, because when you have a quarterback like Jared Goff, and you know what, I used to be somebody early on like Jared Goff, he ain't it. He's not, being the number 1 overall pick at one point, and being traded. Like I just never considered him to be one of those upper echelon quarterbacks, but he definitely has changed that narrative, especially being with Ben Johnson in Detroit. But he comes with limitations. He absolutely does. He's not somebody that can really create when things are off schedule, or if there is a certain type of pressure. Hey, Caleb Williams, unfortunately, has had to deal with a bunch of pressure, not only this past season with the Bears, but also his time at USC, and some self-created by him. And that's why I said playing on time, playing in rhythm will hopefully get rid of some of those sacks and some of those negative plays. But for a guy like Ben Johnson, I would think a guy like Caleb Williams even opens up what you can think is possible in terms of your offense, and what you may want to do with Caleb Williams and his just athletic ability. So I think that that again, there's another wrinkle that we may have not even seen yet with Ben Johnson. Actually, you know what? I'm pretty confident in saying that there's a wrinkle of Ben Johnson's offense that we have not seen, because this is a completely different roster than what you had in Detroit and what the quarterback's play style was like. So I think that's going to be, again, something that's fun to watch. Really quick, there's more obviously we need to talk about. Hey guys, if I see you in the chat here, actually, you know what? I can log in the chat right now. But if you have any questions or comments, or what were you doing when the news dropped when Ben Johnson was going to be announced as the next Bears head coach? Just put it in here. Let's interact. Let's hang out. Have a good time. I know there's a lot of people doing these live shows right now, but I had to get on here. Like I said, I was at my future in-laws house, kind of helping out around there, and then I had to get back over here and talk about this awesome news. But before I kind of get going and keep talking over here like I'm doing, and I always forget to do this at the top of the show every single time, but please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's been getting a lot of great traction lately. Been getting some eyeballs from some potential maybe sponsors and things like that. So really appreciate everyone that's liked, who's hanging out in here, just chilling, talking about ball. I love doing this. I love seeing all of you guys in here. But definitely subscribe if you haven't already, at Nicholas Moreano, and also on Substack. Going to be writing a bunch of content from Mobile, Alabama, just player prospects, and also just everything I hear from down there in Mobile. All 32 teams will be down there, so a lot of good information that will come from down there. And make sure you subscribe to my Substack. Just look up Nicholas Moreano. You should find me there. And if you're not following me on Twitter already, or X, or whatever the hell you want to call it, Nicholas Moreano as well. All right, guys. So Dennis Allen. I mean, we could talk about Ben Johnson all day. We really could. But like I said, I'm going to do some more homework on just watching some of the games, and just some of the takeaways that I find just from him, and what he's been doing. But Dennis Allen seems to be the guy that is linked to be the DC with Ben Johnson. I really do like that, especially given Not only because he's been, man, I mean, gosh, he's been coaching forever now. I don't have the exact number of years, but has obviously been in New Orleans for a while now from 20 goes dates back all the so 2015 senior defensive assistant, was at DC from 2015 to 2021, and then becomes a head coach after Sean Payton leaves. What and for people 4-3-3-4, he's a 4-3 defensive coordinator there. So you'll see those defensive ends. So the Bears, I think, with Montez Sweat and you still have DeMarcus Walker, those bigger bodies that will be able to set the edge. So you'll be good on that aspect in terms of like body types, what the Bears what they have and what they'll need to have as they go with Dennis Allen. And that's not official yet, but it seems like that is going to be the case. But one of the things I was curious about, in that I think a lot of Bears fans have been wondering, when you have a high caliber player like Jaylen Johnson, and you know that offensive coordinators know that, quarterbacks know that, receivers know that, it's it's easy to kind of go in the other direction to avoid a guy like that. So I was just wondering, well, Dennis Allen, do you like to have your corner shadow? And guess what? Marshawn Lattimore, when he was there with Dennis Allen most recently, and now what he was with, obviously moved teams then, but it's a guy that was asked to shadow one of the opponent's top wide receivers. So I think that is going to be something that you will see the Bears utilize in their defense. So I think that only maximizes what you get out of Jaylen Johnson, somebody that wherever that number one wide receiver goes, boom, let's put our top corner on that guy. Not gonna always shut him down, but hey, Jalen's always up for the task, and somebody that is somebody that has been really consistent 2 years in a row now. Didn't have the interception numbers that he did a year ago, but man, he is fundamentally sound. He's going to challenge your opposing wide receiver. So I think that's going to be a much needed addition to a Bears defense that knew, yes, Jalen could handle his own, but guys like Tyreek, like that was an easy target, I think, for opposing offenses to go like, let's see what Tyreek can do against, I don't know, Terry McLaurin or shoot Justin Jefferson, guys like that, where you just knew that you can schematically set something up, have your number two corner on on the opponent's number one wide receiver, and have some success there. I don't think that's going to be the case as much now that you have a guy like Dennis Allen potentially coming in and what he can bring to his defense. And I was seeing somebody in the chat here, Allen uses the wide nine more frequently. I did see that as I was kind of researching a little bit. So maybe that's something that helps out a guy like Montez Sweat. And the Bears now looking into different players and what they can bring and how they can fit into the scheme. Like that's fascinating to me. And I still have to do a lot more homework on a guy like Dennis Allen, just to be transparent with you guys. But it's someone that comes with, look, he has head coaching experience. He did not go well at the time in Oakland, but I do like that you're getting somebody that has been proven, has done it at a high level before as a DC, has had that experience as a head coach. So even if you're a guy like Ben Johnson going into this head coaching role as your first time doing it, you could still talk about some of the things with a guy like Dennis Allen and see what, maybe just feedback on. It could be on a daily basis or whatever it may be. Like I think that's valuable to have somebody who has experience in the room. So having a guy like that there is going to be, I think, a well-needed addition for a first-time head coach. And I guess since we're talking about it, going back really quickly to a guy like Ben Johnson, that's like the biggest concern. And I actually am in a group chat with a bunch of buddies from college, and not to to shout him out or anything, but it's like I think the first thing, and let me know in the chat if you thought this as well. Like, yes, the Bears got him. They got Ben Johnson. Did any of you think well, how are the Bears going to mess this up? Be honest with me. Like as you were processing the information, the Bears did it. They went out, they interviewed 17, coaching candidates. They got their guy. And as you were processing that information, did you automatically think, well, how are the Bears going to mess this up? Be honest with me. I want to see if you guys thought that like my friend did. And I think that just comes with the territory of, being a Bears fan for, as long as we all have and growing up with teams that have always disappointed, like I think it's very natural to think, well, how's this going to go wrong? Right? Like honestly. Um yeah, I'm seeing in the chat here, Leon, yes. I believe that I called him when we fired Flus. But I think I guess maybe that's where we can take this conversation next. Like, how does this go wrong? You have Caleb Williams going into year two. You have some playmakers for him on the outside. You have Ben Johnson now, reportedly going to have Dennis Allen as your DC. How does this end up being something that can potentially end in the wrong way for Chicago? I think the easy way of going about this is saying like, well, what Ben Johnson ran in Detroit, that was, just to bring in some numbers here, they were the over the last three seasons, Detroit has led the NFL in points scored, 1,478. They are finished in top five in offensive DVOA in 2023 and 2024. So a lot of success. So how does this go wrong? Well, Ben Johnson can't take what he did in Detroit and bring that over here because of the O line. Maybe the quarterback development wasn't there. Like I think there's just so many different factors, but I think hopefully this time around, and especially with Ryan Poles kind of learning with how he constructed the first coaching staff with Matt Eberflus, is that you're continuing to add, and Ben Johnson's obviously going to be a part of this, continue to add a coaching staff that obviously works well to develop players, develops that culture that they've been talking about, enforces discipline, in that when things don't go right, whether it's in practice, in training camp, OTAs, games, preseason, you're able to identify those issues right when they happen, address how they need to be changed moving forward so they don't come up later on in the season. Like that's going to take, there's the accountability factor is going to be a huge thing. And the more that, I'm around a guy like Ben Johnson, we just get to get a feel for how he is, talk to players that will soon be with him, see what his coaching style is really like. That will tell not only me, like this guy's gonna, he has a little bit of an edge to him, unlike a guy like Shane Waldron who didn't have that presence when he was at Hallis Hall. Like that will be a clear indication that, hey, I think the Bears you're doing the right things and got the right guy in place to be the leader of the team, but also as the offensive mind. So I think that like it's way too soon to make drastic conclusions about what this hire is going to do. It does provide optimism. It does provide hope. It does, I think, get a lot of Bears fans riled up for what the 2025 season is going to be like. But I think we're all excited about 2024 and what that could have led to. So Ben Johnson being the first time head coach, he's going to have his times where people are going to question like, whoa, how did he make that mistake? Well, he's going through it through the first time, like every other coach that had to do this at one point in time too. But as long as he can continue to develop Caleb Williams, be a leader of this football team, and like not have look, every coach, every player, everybody in the NFL is going to have some kind of ego. Like you got to put your ego at the door at times when it's in the benefit of like the entire team. Like if you're running these creative plays, they're not working. You have to be willing to adjust and pivot off of that and just find the best route to win any type of football game. And I'm not saying that, certain coaches didn't do that, but that's how I think the best teams succeed. They find ways to, adapt during games. If you went in with a certain game plan, it didn't work throughout a couple series. Like, all right, what do we got to do now? Those are, I think, the best minds in football that can take something as you're going live throughout a game and make that proper adjustment. We got to see how Ben Johnson can do that as a head coach now with the Chicago Bears. So, again, fascinating things to wait and see as they're building this coaching staff. And I'm going to be completely honest too. I'm so grateful that this is over. I'm sure everybody can attest to that too. Like as long this is dragging out a little bit too long, and you can't, for me, I can't fully commit to watching some of these prospects until I know, well, who the hell is going to be the head coach? So it does allow me to now, as more news comes out with who the actual coaching staff is going to be, then I can finally like go into all the prospects and things like that. So it was nice that it ended here. You have Ben Johnson. Now you're seeing who he's going to bring in for the rest of his offense, defensive staff, and you can go along from there. Also, like I, I'm pretty sure on Instagram seeing Caleb Williams and just his reaction. I know he was just at USC for a basketball game, but now he was liking the picture of Ben Johnson being the head coach of the Bears. He said what he said on the St. Browns Brothers podcast. Preferably would want a offensive minded guy. He got it. He got duped into thinking that Ben Johnson was texting him when it definitely wasn't him. But now Ben Johnson will be texting him, so he won't be whatever that new number is. He'll be good to connect with his new head coach. So pretty sure Caleb Williams is happy. Sure that a guy like DJ Moore, Roman Dunze are feeling it, ready to go. And I think just based off the chat and seeing you guys, like they got him. They got him. So it should be a fun time. I'm really excited to see how the rest of this roster plays out and who they're going to end up, getting to coach these guys. But it's nice that it is finally over. And we can kind of move on to the next steps of this offseason, how they're going to really build this team in their own version. Not the way that you look at how you built Detroit, but now you got to figure out how you're going to build your own version of this team in Chicago. I see my guy, Brett. Brett, if you were watching earlier, I mentioned you in the podcast, not by name, but now I did, with the comment, "This is one good-looking man." You guys are the best, and I appreciate all the support and all the love that I've been getting, just past couple weeks and things like that. But yeah, I'll keep grinding over here, keep doing, getting information on this Bears team and putting out articles, content for you guys. So appreciate all of you. If you haven't already, if you're in the chat, if you are, it says there's 200, or I don't even know if this is up to date, but if you're in the chat and you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel already, please do. It would really help me out as I grow this channel. And like I said, bunch of content's going to be coming out next week. Excuse me, as I'm down in Mobile, Alabama, getting a bunch of stuff from the Senior Bowl. So you're going to want to know when I'm going live and when I'm writing content. So subscribe to my Substack as well, at Nicholas Moreano. And then Twitter is where I'll put everything. So if you're following me on Twitter, you'll eventually get onto everything else. And, you got Bears fans that are friends, family, brothers, sisters, whatever. Let them know too. I would appreciate the support, but I've already felt plenty of it as, I've been going on doing my own thing. Pipeline J with a comment, no more 4th round punters. No more punters. The Bears will be good on their punters, but I mean, Ryan Poles has taken 2 already. So no, won't get into that sidetrack there, but appreciate all of you guys. I will see you. I'm pretty sure next time when more news comes out, like I said, the coaching staff will start to leak out here and there, and I'll make sure to have more of a background on some of these guys, what they do well, and how that can possibly impact this Bears team. But we'll call that for a video, and I'm sure I'll be back soon. All right, you guys. See ya.